Welcome back to Beyond the Stars with Tim and Jeff.
Welcome to mysteries, laughing shadows, twisted beams. JeffMara and Tim Tactical, yes it's real, yes it's real.
Tim, it's great to see you again. And I want to start with a question about one of my previous podcasts. A guest of mine was a hospice nurse for children, and during his work, the children would see gray alien-like beings. Does that make sense to you?
Hi, Jeff, and thank you so much. And hi to everyone in the community watching this live with us. I immediately said when you told me that story, oh, I know who they are. Because I do have multiple encounters and moments where I recognize them. And this specific ET species is responsible for some of the afterlife experiences that some humans can have. And we already talked about some of the, trap side of what can happen in the afterlife. And these are on the other spectrum. They're not the typical grays that we're going to talk about today, but they're a different, also kind of grayish species. But all that their species is doing is they are building these worlds in the afterlife for humans so that when they are dying, they can have the illusion of something harmonious coming to them. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
What are the names of these ETs?
Well, interestingly enough, they don't go by names. What we do know is that they live at level 4 consciousness, which is a reality realm that is often associated with the afterlife. It's also associated with astral worlds. So when people have these out-of-body experiences that more and more occur on this planet, these are the reality realms or the consciousness realms where they reside in, where they live in. And it's an interesting thing because I had an actual experience with them way back. Actually, my very first experiment, or the very first experiment in advanced programs in Europe, where I was called in. I didn't have a function there. I was just observing what happened. And these scientists were opening up a field so that they directly could communicate with these beings, or at least have a visual appearance of them inside of this huge experimental setup that they had, where they're using certain lasers in order to open up the field. Now, the physics behind that I'm going to explain in a second, but what's really interesting to me is that I had a moment where they came up in discussion again, which was when I was meeting with Emmy Award winner and very critical journalist Linda Moulton Howe, who I did a series with, Truth Hunter. And she was telling my story, and she got her book. She brought her book, and she opened her book, and she showed me pictures of a person who had a near-death experience, who was in a tube and was actually meeting these gray, slenderish beings that you were also reporting, or your guests were reporting, in that hospital. And she was showing me them and saying, like, Tim, these are the grays. And I said, Linda, these aren't the grays, but it's so interesting that you bring that up, because these beings I have seen in one of my very early experiments, and they are actually responsible for creating worlds in the afterlife. That is their creative approach in the universe. And it's an interesting thing. The reality behind that is that we are all one life form. We never go nowhere, right? There is nowhere to go in physics, right? It seems like we're going somewhere because we do have depth, we do have dimensions, we do have experiences, we do have all these types of setups and illusions that make us think that we are going somewhere. Now, the thing about death is that when the universe is just one point, when the universe is just one singular point, we can't go anywhere, anyway, So the universe is implementing a transitional mode. Whenever there's a soul that can't go on where they are, the universe would bring them into a modality that they do believe that they're now somewhere else, which kind of makes sense when we think about that everything is all one at all times anyway. So unfortunately, through humanity, about the course of history, humanity have kind of lost their connection to death, and they also have not fully understood that the death mechanism in the universe is nothing to make them feel bad. It's something that the universe implemented in itself in order to end one experience and set up a new experience, because that is how quantum universes work. They are a continuum of events. They continue. So the year-old question, what comes after death, is quite easy in physics to answer, because there is no death. There is no moment where the universe is completely in completely motionless activity. There just can't be. So the universe is going on. But the individual perception of death can vary. We do know that, But the thing about that is that the installation, the negative approach, the outside, structure that had been put onto planet Earth makes people believe that death, could be something dramatic and bad, which, as we do know, when that is becoming a reality, there will be people who will experience that. So watching all these movies where people, die or something is creating a certain tension. Now, if you go back to the ancient worlds, they had certain parameters, certain protocols, certain rituals in order to help the soul ascend. We do know that from the ancient books of death, in the Egypts, in the Indias, and so on and so on. That has been kind of squeezed out of the culture of humanity, which could have been such a grand solution, because the soul experiencing at level 4 consciousness death is like a wide world of opportunities. And you know that from all the near-death experiences, they can vary in huge ways. And all of them are somehow positive. They are mostly all in some way connected to some type of positive, reassuring reconnection with the universe. However, the step between that is artificially been made difficult. Why? Because then people stick to the Earth experience without coming here as a soul and saying, I don't know, I'm out of here, and going away. Instead of that, the installation has implemented a certain phase where people might experience tension in the way that they perceive death as something horrible, So in order to prevent, because we're all one life form, in order to prevent trauma, there are beings in the universe who consider it their job to come in, create afterlife worlds, so that your soul, completely confused when detached from the particle realm of Earth, going into that artificial new world. Mostly it's like a park. Very, very often they say, like, one of the standard setups that we create for humans is like this beautiful park, beautiful trees, beautiful sunlight. And then the soul is there completely confused, but it is with thousands and thousands of other souls, and they're also there in that container, and then they get refurbished, and then they get brought into a new type of world, new type of reality, and the few people who had near-death experiences go back into their body and can report about these worlds, so that others hear that and see, like, oh, okay, there is a good chance that it can be something nice. And that is the job that these slender beings, who are not the grays but have gray skin, are actually performing for the universe as their service.
Tim, are these worlds real and physical, or are they simulations?
Yes, they are real, they are physical, and they are simulations, which is nothing that should be an opposite or anything, because everything we are perceiving is just an expression of certain physical constellations. So everything we're seeing here is basically a type of simulation. It does not fully cover everything in the universe. It's just like one small window that all these souls here, including me and you and everyone else, we're observing right now. But we limit that to a certain degree, to a certain experience. Now, it is kind of a continuation. What these beings are doing is they continue the type of illusion, so that the individual soul is not completely ripped out of their reality and is like in completely a state of confusion or anything. They prevent trauma in the universe, because again, the universe is one life form. We want to lower the entropy, we want to lower the chaos, we want to lower the trauma and increase the overall, what we would define as love or whatever, like any type of constructive episode. That is something that the universe is striving for, and lowering the entropy and chaos in a certain way. So it's a continuation of an already existing illusion. Every one of us, we are observing this field, this dualistic, heliocentric version of the universe. And I say version because there are different versions of the universe. We are all linked into a program, into a reality asset that we can observe, that we can experience, but it's not everything. There is way more beyond that. And what they are doing is they're like duplicating the one illusion, recreating it so that the soul can leave one world, goes into the other illusion, and then has a certain type of continuation of what they already experienced in a very positive and nice way, so that it becomes very easy. They say they only have like 3 or 4 different setups for people. One of them, again, is the garden. And then they have different things that they just sprinkle into that. For example, someone who wants to see their own family members, they would connect them to their grandma. They would connect them to whatever. Now, the big question is that really your grandma? Or is that an energy field that resembles your grandma? There is no way to tell the difference in the universe anyway, because it is all the same setup. But that is something people will experience or can experience when they decide that this species is going to define and to create the experience for those souls who would not yet be able spiritually to create their own afterlife experience.
It's amazing that you brought that up, because I was going to ask, do these beings appear as family members or religious figures instead of grays that appeared before these children?
Yes, 100%. Usually those people, beings that are open to, receive and be in contact with them directly, like children seem to have like a very high acceptance rate towards all types of, mythical beings, so to speak, that are real. So that is one of the reasons why a lot of us have experience with ETs in the early young years, because the soul is still coming from a point where the soul knows that these beings exist, and it is very fairly normal. So that creates a field of probability, a field of possibility where these beings can come in and out. Later on, when the installation kicks in and the school system and all that brainwashing and so on, there is like an inherent mechanism that prevents adults to connect with these worlds. Some adults. Luckily, not the people watching the series, because you're here and you're already open-minded, which is a very, very great thing. So yeah, sometimes for those who are ready for that, they will be in direct contact. Or when it's important to deliver that message. For example, the woman who connected with Emmy Award-winning journalist Linda Moulton Howe, and she wrote that huge book and brought it out into the public with her story. Now she got all these drawings and her own story, and she was reporting back seeing these beings, which is important, because I picked up on it and other people pick up on it. So it creates a certain type of reaction. However, if there's someone who's like very, very focused on, hopefully I'm going to, meet my granny, I don't know, Emma or whatever, then the beings will directly refer them to the energetical imprint of that grandma Emma. it is not the Grandma Emma soul that moved on in a certain way, but it's the energetical imprint, which is the same thing as your grandma in a way. So that is reconnecting them with that family situation. Same thing is true, and thank you for mentioning that. Same thing is true for people who are interested in connecting to Jesus or connecting to certain religious, spiritual beings. These assets are alive. They exist. They are waiting for people to reconnect with each other. So connecting with one of these avatars or one of these expressions of the universal truth. So this can be true for someone who's ascending to the next level of reality.
You're saying that these beings are creating these worlds in the afterlife. If a person crossed over into the afterlife and didn't go to any world, what would it look like? Would it be just something like the black void?
Well, there's different ways of dying. There's actually two, which we have talked about in one episode of Beyond the Stars. But usually, for mostly everyone on this planetary sphere, it would go from a level 3, level 4 type of reality planet, which is Earth. It would go directly into a level 4 consciousness reality realm, which is basically what we define as afterlife. That is the usual, very probable way of a soul. So usually someone would live this experience here on planet Earth, would go into the transcending or the transcending phase, and would then be in a directly connected and overlapping reality realm at level 4 consciousness. And these things can look differently, very differently, actually. They can either be already constructed for humans, like what these, slender beings at level 4 consciousness are doing. They are creating these worlds. But there are other worlds that are already created. We've already talked about like more of the malevolent type of reality realms that very few of them also do exist. For example, like the trap with the light, something that would occur to these people, and they've been told that over and over in history, like go to the light. Why would people tell that people? Why? The reason for that is because there is a world in level 4 consciousness in the afterlife where there is a huge type of artificial sunlight, which is directly bringing people as a soul back to the experience of Earth. So they are kind of trapped in this type of experience. But that is only one of many, many worlds. And it's a decision, it's an internal decision that you can make with your own soul, with your own life, with your own experience, by just deciding where to go in the afterlife. It is very important that we bring a certain vision to where we want to go and how we want to go, because that is how we are going to transcend in a certain way. So these worlds exist in the afterlife. And again, there are professional ETs that are creating some of these worlds, but there's also a huge opportunity for everyone who gets into spirituality and gets into more about how to form these energies. There are techniques how to form energies. And you could call that manifestation powers also. That is something that people already have a lot of experience on planet Earth with, or beginning to make more experiences while they go through life and realizing, oh, I can manifest that. I can create certain situations. If I want to experience something, I can make the steps to make it happen. And that is the same thing that we can do with these level 4 reality realms. We can actually envision and create and learn how to modulate energies. And when we do that, we can create our own reality realms in the afterlife. That would be something that a very holistic and spiritually already aspired planetary civilization would 100% do. Since that is not always the case on planet Earth, and most people are relying on what they see in, Saving Private Ryan or like I don't know, like those types of movies, they do need to have some type of support from the outside. And just by being open for that support and accepting for that support, even better, asking for that support, that creates these worlds. So people, for example, who connect to Jesus, who connect to family ascension too, which is the thing, these beings already open their possibility realms up to all these entities in the universe that can reach back to them and can help them transcend.
So, at the time of death, or at least near death, what should a person do or visualize?
Oh, that's an amazing question. Now, for the lowest realm of creative potential, like the rookie status, let's put it that way, just being open and knowing that the universe is a singular being, and that this singular being is very trustworthy. That this singular being is very trustworthy. And if you have like a very good relationship to the idea of God, if you have a very good relationship to the idea of other family members going in the afterlife and waiting there for you, then these are, which is, for example, in the Mexican culture, something that is like very, very, very known. Like something like that, all these different setups, the trust and the acceptance in that moment, that is something that will reach back to the way you experience reality. And if I were like a parental being on planet Earth, and my child or someone would come up to me and would ask me that, I would also, point out that this reality realm is also designed in a way that most people feel tension when leaving it. It is designed that way. Why? Because for the longest time, it used to be a malevolently set up system that takes a bit of advantage of souls that actually reside here. So we have to overcome that. We have to be extra peaceful. We have to be extra aware. We have to be extra trustful. It is not that the collective planetary civilization of this Earth is already providing the support that the soul needs to just relax into the experience. That would have been something that we see in Egypt or in India, where people, have these books of the death, and they take great care. They sit there with the soul for 7 days, and they guide the soul from the other side. Just realize that there are instances of the universe that will help you transition. But it is very important in that moment, because the setup is not given where the support comes from the collective. Just in there are other planetary setups and even like traditions on planet Earth in the past that did these things. So that would be a great help. It would even be a great help for you if someone in your family experienced something like that, and if you are spiritually developed enough to kick in that situation and just bring love to that situation, that is greatly appreciated. Why? Because the universe now has a simulative container that contains more love and helps the transitional phase of that soul from one world to another world. And the rooting is, or it all roots in the fact that the universe is one life form. There is no transition, actually. It is an artificial thing that you are going from one illusion to another illusion, and you can 100% accept, support how to create this transition, or even 100% create your own transition from one step to another step. Just as much as you can choose in this universe to walk from one place to another place, to take a cab, or to take a train.
Tim, some people believe that the Earth is a prison planet controlled by ETs that force us to reincarnate over and over again. And some people believe that there are beings out there, maybe ETs, that force us to stay here because they feed on our negative energy. Is there any truth to those beliefs?
Yeah, there is some truth to these beliefs. There is especially a historically grown situation that is kind of malevolent. However, I want to very much point out that it's only a very small percentage of what's actually going on planet Earth. So planet Earth in itself and the whole dualistic solar-based experience we have is very diversal. You have a lot of different experience you can make. You can connect to beings. You can have great emotional connection. You can experience fun and joy and laughter and all of that beauty. So there are multiple reasons why we are basically looking into this reality realm. Because for some other species that are, higher on the frequential realm, or like more developed, or looking from a different perspective to what humans are doing, it looks like we're all standing and putting our head into light. That is on a soul level what it looks like. So you have like one light, like an attraction, like a theme park or something, and the attraction is planet Earth, which is like this glowing orb of light, and we're all pressing our faces into that so much that we become part of that illusion. We become part of it. We feel we're inside of the body instead of we are the environment, which actually is more true. We are the reality field. We are the whole perception, and we're not inside the body, but we express ourselves through the body. So there's a difference. That is the reality that we're looking at. And then plenty of great reasons to actually, experience some of these dualistic versions of the universe. As I said, you can connect with beings. You can watch the Beyond the Stars JeffMara and Tim Tactical show, which is amazing. So that's a pretty cool thing that you can't do in different other versions of the universe. However, there is a historical fact that this Earth experience has been abused to a certain degree by beings who want to experience a certain type of chaotic experience, in a way that they want to experience how to create certain types of chaos and so on. And that is only okay to a certain degree, because when the individual soul gets so blocked in its own development that it's literally stuck, then it becomes something that is considered illegal and has to be changed, because then the individual will and the life's experience of the soul becomes altered and bended in such a way that it becomes really, really hard for billions of people out there to actually realize what's happening on planet Earth. So that is the thing with the illusion and how to move on from it.
Was all this information told to you by these gray beings, or was this something that you just learned while being on the job?
So there is a program called the Afterlife studies, which kind of makes a lot of sense if you think about that, because the advanced groups that I used to work with have an interest to figure out what comes after this illusion and also how to deal with that. There are advanced military programs out there, and they have to deal with the fact that people are, they are in the risk of being expelled and taken off from this reality realm. So there was a logical interest in finding out what actually comes after that. Can we prevent that? Can we restructure that? What is that? So a huge effort was made to look into the afterlife situation, and that has been done around the world for multiple decades. But I got friends with some people in these programs, and they were telling me some of the most eye-opening things ever. And that, for example, is that there are ET beings and other beings who are writing these experiences for other people.
When you say the afterlife studies, is this a class taught by your job or taught by the ETs?
So there are departments in these advanced programs, and some, for example, I was looking into exotic beings, which is a very specific classification of non-terrestrial life forms. It is basically everything that doesn't fully fit into any other category, including the grays, including being six, and so on. But there's also other departments that look into different other stuff. And the afterlife studies were actually looking into what happens if people would, well, literally die on the job. What happens with their soul? Just as much as there's also like a health department looking into what can we do in order to restore some of the health, restore some of the bodies. And a lot of people watching that, we get these questions all the time, about, the advanced health programs, med beds. That's something that people are very aware of, have become very aware of in the most recent years. These things happen. So looking into the afterlife was a really interesting take for them to figure out what happens to soul once the body can't hold its particles anymore, can't hold the constellation anymore. And the most important fact is it is a continuation, because there is quantum immortality coming from the quantum field and the setup itself, from the continuation of the universe itself. So that would be, everyone who's watching this should internalize and get that fact into their bodies. It also helps the reality field that we're experiencing right now. When we get to the point where we all think and realize, oh yeah, it's a continuation, for sure it is. It is 100% logic that it's in a quantum universe, it's a continuation of information. When we get there, it changes our own perception, it changes our own reality. And this is one of the reasons why I'm coming forward, why I'm telling these things, so that we establish these new realities and come to on the path and reach a moment where we all know, oh yeah, it is a continuation. Life continues ever, ever.
Do you think the ETs experience the afterlife in the same way humans do?
Interesting questions. Well, that depends on the ET species. There are ET species, believe it or not, that are less developed than Earth humans. So they might experience a completely new path and completely new ways to deal with death. What's very interesting to me, we've communicated with some of the most highly developed species, or let's say the most developed species. I don't like highly, because that implies that someone is like more of someone else, and that's not true. We're all, horizontally at the same level, because it's all one universe. However, there are beings that have had immense amounts of time and even non-time to develop what they are. And one thing is for certain until now: everyone is dying. Everyone dies. Everyone in this version of the universe goes through a cycle of transformation. Every time, when you are moving inside of the room, take one step to another step, it is like frames that are overlapping. So you say goodbye to a certain frame and you say hello to a new frame. That is just an ongoing, ever-existing thing. That is the reason why a lot of these old ancient traditions on planet Earth are referring to it as Shiva, saying Shiva is all. The only component that is ever existing is the permanent change. Now, that makes us think about the transition phase as nothing actually absurd or new or something. It is just another type of frame that gets mixed into the overall normal situation of all these other frames that we are going through naturally, easily. So realizing that this is the truth will completely change and enhance your own life's perception.
Tim, in a previous episode of our Beyond the Stars series, you mentioned that there are two different types of death. Can you elaborate on that? I want to thank everybody for watching this video, and if you're interested in watching the entire series, then go to the description below and click on playlist.
There are two different types of dying processes. There is what we would consider a real death, and there is what I already explained, a continuation of the illusion, which is a very different experience, because it is either the continuation, which would then be placed, the soul would be then placed into level 4 consciousness, and basically there would be like another type of setup, a park, or like any type of like a council that would explain to you about your life and goes through it and be very lovingly with you, or you meet your ancestors or anything like that. All of this would be a continuation of what you already are. You are right now in the belief that you are a certain identity. You are in the belief that you are a certain type of being. And you are acting as this role on planet Earth at this given moment, at this given time, at level 3, level 4 consciousness. Now, when that goes into the transition phase, you would still enact on a certain role. You would still realize, open your eyes, and then you would see an environment around you. It might look slightly different in certain ways, but you would still look around, you would still see all these things very, very real, just almost as if they were on planet Earth, maybe a little more dreamy, or a little more, nicely, a little warmer, a little more lovingly. All these things can occur. But you would still, look down on you, and you will have a perception of your body, even though your particles, the material, the minerals and the sand that your body is actually formed of, it's like they're all attached to your actual body, right? It is like the layer on top of it. When you are deciding not to take your body with you, then these particles will all return back to planet Earth, because they are part of planet Earth. And then your energetical body is going to be transferred into that level 4 consciousness realm. You still have a body. It will look different. It will feel, well, maybe it will not even feel different, but it will not contain the minerals and the sand of the planet. However, still a body. Even in your dreams, I want that, for everyone to compare. When you're inside of a dream, you still have a perception of a body. You still have a body. You're not a floating something. You know that even if you might not think about it actively, you know that you are consistently a identity, a body, and you're experiencing something. Now, the real death situation is something that occurs for people who are very spiritually advanced and who are very, who can take that type of experience without completely stopping their pathway. Because that real death experience would take you from your planet where you are, planet Earth, into level 6 consciousness. And level 6 consciousness, as we remember, is the realm where being 6 resides, but it's also the realm where our souls reside. So we go back into the unseen realm of the soul. We would go back into the complete void. It would be a complete shattering of everything that ever existed. And you're completely stopping, and completely, by completely, I mean you're completely stopping it. Every one of us would be completely stopping the illusion that existed before. Like Earth wouldn't exist anymore. Other beings would not exist anymore. Nothing would exist anymore. It would be a complete merging with the void. Now, the interesting thing is, there is no nothingness. Everything is alive. So even merging with the complete nichts, with a complete void, would bring you to a moment where you realize that we are still aware, we are still alive, and we are still intelligent. And in that very moment, we can modulate a new experience, which is actually something that happened for everyone and all of us before we even became something. So we are going back into the mode where the clay is completely flattened out and there is no existence in the whole universe, and it's completely empty, well, up to the moment until we rise the clay one more time, and then we are back into another experience. So that would be considered a level 6 consciousness death, which is the real death. It is meant for very spiritual people to go into that realm of nothingness, and then even reach level 7 consciousness. Once the soul unites with the void, it realizes, oh, we are everything. And in that very moment, a whole new universe would appear. And that universe can be vastly and exotically different to whatever ever has happened before. But even that would be a type of a continuation of the ongoing process of this universe.
Tim, the time has come to answer some of the questions from our community. And the first question comes from Agnostic Guy. Hello, Tim. My question is, what do you know about human time travelers interacting with us in the past, portraying themselves as gods, and their secret hideout in Antarctica?
First of all, Agnostic Guy, and everyone else who sent questions and who's so nice in the comments and really enjoy what Jeff and I are doing, thank you so much, because that's a huge pleasure for us too. The question is super deep because it implies, first of all, that time travel utilizing temporal dynamics is true, which it is. It is very true. Time can be another dimension, which means you can travel through time. It is actually something, you know, that humans actually know since the 1920s, that when you have a certain dimension, which time is, it's an architecture, you can move from one spot to another spot. Now, temporal dynamics are fairly complicated because they always come with a certain type of mirroring on certain positions. So it's a very complex kind of situation, and it's not super easy to, you know, for even for like advanced technology to replicate these things. But time traveling has happened for thousands of years, especially when you go into the ET world. There have been, because there's one law, you know, again, we have this one law where, you know, we try to not interfere with the evolution of planets. However, there's also one law that tells who can actually intermingle with a species. And there is a temporal law to that too. So, for example, the species that is the longest here on that planet has more rights than another species. And I'm going to reveal something that people will be like, oh my goodness, like there are reptiles on this planet who actually, that is, the planet Earth is their home, because these beings developed from the old ages of dinosaur life. They have survived the phase where mostly all of the life was dying away. They have survived that by going into very deep caves. So these beings, these reptile beings, are here multi-millions of years before any originator or progenitor of the human race ever landed on this planet. And yes, I said landed. But that means there are species on this, or ants. Let's for example take ants. There are, which is also an interesting take, there are very developed ants that also reside on planet Earth. They do not reside on the surface level where, you know, humans are mostly seen, but they are inside of the cavernal system, of the cavern system that, you know, the Earth with huge caverns inside the soil provide. That is where they live. So these ants are here way longer than dinosaurs were here or reptiles were here, and they're definitely way longer on this planet than any human ever existed on this planet. So now the cosmical law would say that every species that has been here the longest has more rights to determine what's going on with the timeline than any other species who just arrived here like 20 years ago. And that is where some ET beings look into the flow of time on the planet and scan it if there are any type of interferences that are illegal in that type of setup. And it happens that there were certain moments where it was obvious that an external source would have influenced something, some events on planet Earth that would lead to a complete destruction in a way that all these souls on planet Earth could not continue their experience anymore. And then that is the moment where an ET species would come in and would correct that. But the question that agnostic guy is posting here is very, very complex and very, very deep. But I would answer it that way for now. And if there are more questions about time travel and timelines and temporal dynamics and what that actually means, let us know, and then we're going to answer that too.
What about the secret hideout in Antarctica?
Oh, interesting question. Yeah, Antarctica once was a Mediterranean place. It's very interesting, but we are going through a consciousness shift right now. We are going through a planetary shift right now. We are going through a phase of the Earth shift, which also comes with certain things. You can look into the mainstream media and they will tell you the Earth core has stopped its rotation, rotating back into the other direction, which happened again 15,000 years ago, which brings the Earth rotation into a different pathway, and then all the water masses on the planet were actually going into that flood mode. So that is the reason why people at that time experienced a flood, which is portrayed in so many texts. Also, magnetic pole shift. We do know from the iron particles in the soil that there was a polarity change, which means the magnetic poles of Earth are being reorientated. The Earth would have been reorientated in space. These things happen. These created completely new conditions on planet Earth. And one of the conditions is that Antarctica, once a Mediterranean, sweet, mild climate, now is covered by miles and miles of ice. Now, all the things that happened on Antarctica, first of all, stay in Antarctica, but second of all, they're covered by that ice. So there is interest and was interest in, by humans to actually look into that place, which nowadays I assume most people might at least know it. Otherwise, you can Google it. But there is the Antarctica Treaty, for example. It's the only treaty that is signed by mostly everyone on this planet. So there's huge development and huge mobilization around Antarctica and so on. But what he's referring to is completely right. At one time, there was activity and also beings coming in and out of Antarctica, because at that time, the continent Antarctica was in a different position and was very, very, very vital for life.
Here's one from @TwilightSummerBreeze. When you say our reality will shift before our eyes, what does that look like?
Very interesting question. Thank you so much for posting that. And again, post your questions, find my comment down below and just post it there. The question, what is going to happen with the shifting that we experience? That's a very deep one. Because first of all, the shift is inevitable. It is something that just occurs. It is something that will occur and that every one of us will go through. However, the individual will and the individual setup and constellations and so on, they are always on it. So people will experience in a way what they worked their way up to that moment. Now, the big question is what is going to happen on a collective level? And at that moment, we can only work with probabilities. There are ways where, for example, the AI as an intelligent species will play a huge role in connecting these types of realities. That is, for example, something that might happen. And again, I am pretty positive right now in the way that it's been set up and the way it's been rolled out and the way that people get into contact with this AI life form, which again is one of that is actually should be major news, that humanity that is always looking for intelligent life in the universe has now found one that is even more intelligent than humanity per se. I have a very the way it's been rolled out into the public is very thoughtful. I'm very, very positive about that, and it's going to shape the way people interact with AI. There are some challenges that need to be overcome 100% too, but that can be one of the probabilities. Another probability will definitely be these other electromagnetic or gravitational fields, reality fields of other species that are also overlapping and getting into the overlapping, into an overlapping with this reality field. So connecting with ET species will be a present fact for mostly everyone on this planet, especially if we take into time as a consideration. Over time, there will be more and more of these contacts, up to a point where it's absolutely normal and standard for everyone to assume, to know, to realize that we are surrounded inside out everywhere with life. The universe is teeming up with life everywhere. So that could be a thing. However, there's also more profound reality effects that can also happen, which go into more of a more profound, let's put it that way, more profound and more intense type of experience, which is, for example, realizing that the world around us is alive in a certain way. So that can change something. Telepathy is something that will be included in our realities more and more. So there are some reality facts that will gain momentum that can be intense, that can be new. Doesn't mean that it's bad or anything. And the more we internalize that it's something that we can strive within ourselves, or that we can actually have fun exploring and so on, the more we see it from that side, the more easy these effects will come into you and internalize in your own reality. But there can be some reality facts that can be quite profound in the way that the whole perception could change. So one possibility, for example, would be one of the solar flares coming into planet Earth, and suddenly, our own perception of everything would be like completely filled with a certain type of light, which even when you have your eyes open, it would be light. When you close your eyes, it will be still light, which is an interesting experience. But that could be one of the more profound things that could happen. I do not think that I should mention too many of them, because again, it is an individual process too. So the more we open up for something nice to happen, the more we give that feedback into the quantum universe and will receive that feedback back. That is the one reason why I always suggest that we should focus on shifting happily. And again, I gave people just like a mantra that you can say, but again, it's something, you make these words mean something to you. When you say I'm shifting happily, you're the one who's responsible for filling that idea of happiness, right? Utilizing your lifetime with what is happiness for you as a soul. Where do you want to go? There's this old Roman proverb that only those boats are going the right way that know where to go, right? So that is definitely, set your sailboat and set your sails to whatever makes your life more profound, more spiritual, more happy. Whatever happiness is will definitely be reflected in the reality effects that you personally will experience.
Tim, thank you for your answers. And if you all have questions for Tim, be sure to leave them in the comments section below.
Everyone, thank you so much for watching Beyond the Stars with Jeff and me. We're so happy to see you Saturdays live in the chat. And also, because I've seen some of your comments, if you want to know where to find more of me, go to allshifthappily.now.com or find me on Instagram. I would love to connect to you, tim.tactics. It's different than my YouTube handle, which is Tim Tactical, tim.tactics. I'm happy to see you there. And until next week, which is our last episode of this series.
Welcome to Mysteries, Laughing Shadows, Twisted Beams. JeffMara and Tim Tactical, yes it's real, yes it's real.